Thank you, Mr Deputy President. As a servant to the many different people who make up our one Queensland community, I speak in support of the Public Governance, Performance and Accountability Vaccine Indemnity Bill 2023. Because with indemnity comes impunity, and this parliament needs huge doses of accountability to change it from exploiting the people and return it to serving the people. The main process for distributing vaccines in Australia is through the National Immunisation Program. Section 9B of the National Health Act 1953 allows the Minister for Health to provide or arrange for the provision of injections for distribution through the National Immunisation Program. Injections distributed via the National Immunisation Program must be listed on the Pharmaceutical Benefits Scheme. The purchase of injections occurs through the Commonwealth entering into supply contracts with the relevant pharmaceutical companies. These arrangements would include the amount of compensation the Commonwealth is liable to pay in exchange for the injections and are generally subject to the Commonwealth procurement rules. During COVID, the Liberal government, with the full support of Labor, Opposition and the Greens, simply tore up the rule book. Pfizer was given a blanket immunity, and Pfizer knew when the injection was being developed and tested that they had a blanket immunity. What could go wrong? Firstly, accountability is shredded. The outcome of this ill-considered decision was an excess mortality rate in Australia of 27% above normal since the vaccines were rolled out. Most likely 30,000 Australians will die this year from side effects of our COVID response, including the injectables. Did they really think Pfizer, a multinational pharmaceutical company with an appalling track record, would suddenly turn into a model corporate citizen when asked to produce the COVID injections? Did you? Prior to COVID, Pfizer had been fined $3 billion for criminal acts. Criminal acts! They are a habitual offender, persistently engaging in illegal and corrupt marketing practices, bribing physicians and suppressing adverse trial results. We know Pfizer suppressed bad trial data in the COVID trials, fabricated results, excluded test subjects that became sick and failed to test for a full range of adverse effects. They did this knowingly. The vaccines were then manufactured in a shoddy fashion and did not use good manufacturing process as they were supposed to be, and as every other product approved for Australia in Australia must. Live DNA derived from E. coli used in production has been found to be in large quantities in the Pfizer product, up to 1 billion strands or parts of strands in every dose. Huge variations between batches suggest huge variations in manufacturing quality. I say suggest because we have no idea what is actually in these products, because the TGA accepts batch testing from the manufacturer and has not conducted the testing on each batch as it arrives. It has not conducted the testing. The TGA took the US FDA's word for the results of the Stage 2-3 clinical trials, and the FDA took Pfizer's word for it. We're relying on Pfizer's word for these. To give a product immunity, the TGA should have thoroughly tested these injections, not look the other way. We have no idea what harm these products will eventually cause because there was no long-term safety testing conducted. None. Why would they spend that money when they already had the immunity? That's what immunity's done to them. More profit for Pfizer. More money in the pocket for CEO Albert Bourla, who banked $30 million in salary and bonuses last financial year. Overall, Pfizer sold $36 billion in COVID products in 2022, pushing Pfizer to a record $100 billion in sales. I am slightly encouraged to see their share price is down 40% from the peak of 2021, and projected revenue in 2023 is down 80%. While Pfizer made out like the fraudulent bandits they are, the Australian taxpayers are on the hook for who knows how much. The budget papers are required to show every potential liability the government has. There is an entry for our liability under the COVID products, yet they have not quantified it. You have not quantified it. There's no figure there. That can't continue. This liability will run into the billions. Australia needs this bill from Senator Babet to make sure no greedy, dishonest opportunistic pharmaceutical company is allowed to get away with financial murder again. Australia needs this bill to make sure no inhuman monster, like the former Health Minister Greg Hunt, like the former Prime Minister Scott Morrison, like Premiers Palaszczuk, McGowan, Andrews, is ever allowed to get away with misfeasance forcing experimental gene therapy-based injections, leading to tens of thousands of deaths, tens of thousands of people permanently crippled for life, and hundreds of thousands of people injured, and uncounted people grieving. That's the nuts and bolts. Now we go into the morality, because government cannot be trusted. With immunity comes impunity. The simple reason for lack of accountability is the hiding of government actions through indemnities. Firstly, my position on medications, including injections. We all want safe treatment. We are all pro-medicine. We all want that each of us decides what is put into our body. My body, my choice. We all want freedom to make our choice and for our choice to be accepted and respected. We all wholeheartedly support medicines that are fully tested and proven safe, effective, affordable and accessible. I am opposed to untested drugs, forcing of untested experimental injections onto people, forcing untested experimental injections onto people with the only alternative being to lose one's livelihood or let your children starve. How could any human allow this to happen? How could any human allow this to happen? Yet you did. And then in your shame, your cowardice, your guilt, the best you can do to those of us who stood up to this inhuman, monstrous and at times murderous madness is call us anti-vaxxers. Pathetic. Shame. Labels are the refuge of the ignorant, the incompetent, the dishonest, the guilty and the fearful. Name-calling as you sling words at us for protecting innocent, good people. But your vilification means nothing to us because we go for the truth. I oppose coercion, I oppose mandates, I oppose confidentiality, hiding details from taxpayers. These untested injections from Pfizer and ModRNA and AstraZeneca were forced on people using lies. Daily, for 2 weeks, former Prime Minister Morrison said, there are no vaccine mandates in Australia. A lie. A murderous lie killing 30,000 Australians annually in excess deaths above normal. Worse, the Morrison-Hunt duo enabled and drove the injection mandate. Here's how. Morrison-Hunt duo bought the injections. Morrison-Hunt duo gave them to the states. Morrison-Hunt duo indemnified the states. Morrison-Hunt duo gave Federal Health Department data available to the states. That was the only way the states could enforce their mandates that really were driven by the Morrison-Hunt duo. State premiers admitted their vaccine mandates were in line with the bogus so-called National Cabinet that was headed by Scott Morrison. The Morrison federal government mandated injections in Defence, the Australian Electoral Commission, Aged Care, the Australian Federal Police and others. But there are no vaccine mandates in Australia, he said. And then yesterday on Tuesday I spoke about the Medical Countermeasures Consortium that drove the whole lot. The 4 nations' defence departments from Canada, America, Britain and Australia. This was planned and delivered, and Pfizer did the work on behalf of the American Defence Department. That's why it bypassed all the testing. And now we have 30,000 excess deaths. That's 2 Boeing 787 Dreamliner crashes every week for a year. Every week for a year. Shame. And yet we have Queensland nurses still suspended. Still suspended. Foreign nurses are being recruited by Palaszczuk, Premier Palaszczuk, to take their jobs. And then she tells us repeatedly for the last 3 years, the health system is crashing. Disgraceful. Inhuman. The police are mandated, and they've lost many. The teachers have been mandated. And when they finally lifted the mandate, many of them didn't come back. We found children crippled, affected. The teachers were fined. Doctors were mandated, and many have left the profession. How can Australia put up with that? That's going to hurt the patients. The pilots were mandated, and Civil Aviation Safety Authority, CASA, cares not a bit. It's willfully blind, it's misfeasance, and it's betraying passenger air safety. In a shining light, the Australian Firefighters Association was formed because their union would not stand up for them. Many unions went rogue and did not stand up for their members. But the Australian Firefighters Association resisted. They developed from the very start a defensive strategy and an offensive strategy. And that's the only one that Premier Palaszczuk did not mandate. So it's based on false premise. Livelihoods and lives have been destroyed. And we had the absurdity of the drugs failure, the vaccines failure, the injections failure, being falsely blamed on the people who didn't take it. Indemnities encourage impunity and rogue behaviour, irresponsible behaviour, destructive behaviour, cruel, monstrous, inhuman behaviour. Indemnities destroy accountability because everything is hidden and indemnities are given. There's no problem disclosed, and so there's no compensation. Millions of people suffer in silence, and this Labor government perpetuates the misery, the deceit. Rapper Zubi, in a very well-delivered address in 2022 at the CPAC conference, observed that most politicians don't care if people die, and he is correct. Most politicians don't care if people die. There's no Royal Commission, there's no Senate inquiry, there's no access to contracts, commercial in confidence, we're told. Years after they were signed, there's still commercial in confidence. Taxpayers paid for injections, yet we cannot see what we paid for. We can't even see how much we paid. Censorship. What are they hiding? Bill Gates paid for censorship in the mouthpiece Big Brother media that is often owned by the same people that own Pfizer. Bill Gates paid for censorship across social media. Gates is an investor in Big Pharma, a massive investor in Big Pharma, and a massive contributor to the World Health Organization, the UN's World Health Organization. I hold the whole Senate accountable, the whole Senate, apart from 6 senators withstanding the catcalls. At last Thursday's Senate inquiry into anti-discrimination bills, one of which was moved by Senator Hanson, another one by Senator Canavan, Senator Antic and Senator Rennick, 4 of the 5 senators grilling Pfizer, Moderna and the TGA are from Queensland. 4, plus Senator Antic. And Pfizer did not know where to go. Clearly, Pfizer, Moderna and the TGA all disgraced themselves and showed themselves to be inhuman. Clearly, none feel accountable for the deaths, the chronic and crippling injuries, the severe injuries. Not federal government or its health departments, not the state premiers or health departments, not employers mandating injections. No one takes accountability. Well, we will chase you until you are held accountable. We've had airline employees taken to hospital and then returned and insisted, the company Qantas insisted they be injected. There are too many other stories there, I won't go into them. But we see people awakening. We see the situation that's created heroes. Hoodie, Maria Z, Chris Spicer and many, many more from the independent People's Media. Doctors who formed the Australian Medical Professionals Society. Dr William Bay, and he is a doctor. Nurses like Dee, fireys like Dan, police like Crystal, paramedics like Peter, doctors like Carmelo, pilots like Alan, and thousands of construction workers and other workers. You've woken the people up. Thank you so much for being our heroes. Here and globally, you're waking people up. When indemnities are granted, especially in secret, accountability is removed. And you, in this Senate, in this Parliament, have demonstrated that repeatedly. You've confirmed it. All who oppose this bill will be voting to continue the needless deaths and lies. This bill will prevent recurrence. Ending indemnity will end impunity, will contribute to restoring accountability. Transparency restores trust. I wholeheartedly support this bill and urge all senators to support and to vote in support.
Senator Watt.